The Clone Wars weren't just a battle for control of the galaxy, they were the culmination of a shadowy plan to dismantle the Republic from within. It wasn't about blasters, lightsabers, or droids. It was a war of economic sabotage, political manipulation, and social collapse. Behind every blaster bolt and lightsaber clash, a shadowy plot was quietly reshaping the galaxy into something entirely dependent on Sheev Palpatine long before the first Imperial banner ever flew. Palpatine wasn't running just another military campaign. His real goal wasn't to win battles, it was to tear the galaxy apart from the inside. By the time he declared the Empire, no one would be able to resist, not because they wanted it, but because the galaxy would be too broken to fight back. The turning point came when Palpatine designated Mygeeto, Felucia, and Saleucami as the Triad of Evil. Publicly, these planets were seen as key Separatist strongholds, places that had to be crushed to bring peace to the Republic. The galaxy believed these battles would be the decisive ones to end the war, but Palpatine had no intention of ending the conflict just yet. These three planets weren't just battlefronts, they were the Republic's economic lifelines. Mygeeto's wealth fueled entire sectors, Saleucami held vital trade routes, and Felucia's fertile lands fed countless worlds. While the Republic viewed these planets as military targets, Palpatine saw their true value: control over the galaxy's very survival. By cutting off trade routes and vital supplies, Palpatine's sieges weren't just military maneuvers, they were calculated economic disasters. Each battle left more star systems increasingly isolated and desperate. The more the Republic struggled, the more they leaned on Palpatine, who had engineered their dependency from the start. Slowly but surely, planets that had once prided themselves on independence now found themselves utterly reliant on Palpatine's generosity. Every planet that accepted aid found itself bound closer to Coruscant. What began as economic relief slowly became something more insidious, as each act of assistance tightened political and economic ties between these systems and Palpatine's future empire. By the time the Republic realized what was happening, it was too late. Many systems were too weakened to resist. They didn't need to be conquered, they simply had no other option but to comply. Palpatine had engineered a galaxy where dependency on him was the only path to survival. While the galaxy's economy was collapsing, the Senate was blind to Palpatine's true motives. They still believed they had control, that their decisions were shaping the Republic. But in reality, every action they took only strengthened Palpatine's grip. Emergency powers, initially granted as temporary measures, were now permanent fixtures of his rule. Senators like Bail Organa and Padme Amidala could see the danger, but they were in the minority. Most of the Senate had become little more than a rubber stamp for Palpatine's decrees. The longer the war dragged on, the more desperate the Senate became, willing to hand over more authority to Palpatine in the hopes that he could end the conflict. And Palpatine played the Senate perfectly. He made it appear that every new power he seized was necessary for the war effort. Senators who once opposed him agreed to measures they never would have supported in peacetime, too afraid of public opinion to resist. Every emergency measure they passed chipped away at their authority until they had given Palpatine complete control. Palpatine didn't just take power, he had the Senate hand it to him willingly. How did he do it? By dividing the Senate. He pitted senators against one another, making them fight over minor points of war strategy, while the bigger picture slipped through their fingers. The more fractured the Senate became, the easier it was for Palpatine to push through new measures unopposed. Had the Senate's strongest voices like Bail Organa or Padme Amidala been able to rally a united front earlier, it's possible that Palpatine's emergency powers could have been curtailed. But the constant distractions of the war, combined with Palpatine's strategic positioning of allies and opponents alike, ensured that no true opposition ever gained momentum. In hindsight, the Senate was doomed the moment it allowed itself to be fractured. At the same time, Palpatine used the media to reinforce his control. The HoloNet portrayed him as the Republic's savior, the one figure holding everything together in the midst of chaos. Senators who opposed him were painted as weak or even traitorous, afraid to act when the galaxy needed strength. With public opinion on his side, Palpatine's grip tightened. It's worth considering whether the galaxy's population could have resisted Palpatine's control had the HoloNet not been so tightly controlled. With Palpatine's narrative shaping every news cycle, there was little room for dissenting voices. If public opinion had been less firmly in Palpatine's grasp, the Senate might have found the courage to resist. But in the end, fear and manipulated perception made sure no significant opposition would ever form. One of the most critical aspects of Palpatine's rise was his systematic destruction of the Jedi Order. While the Jedi were fighting battles across the Outer Rim, Palpatine was undermining their influence back on Coruscant. He knew that to consolidate his control, he would need to discredit the Jedi, turning the galaxy's protectors into perceived threats. One can only wonder, what if more of the Jedi had seen through Palpatine's facade sooner? Figures like Mace Windu and Yoda voiced their suspicions in the final months of the war, but by then, Palpatine's plan was too far along. Had the Jedi Order acted sooner, perhaps rallying key senators or leveraging their influence differently, the galaxy might have witnessed a much different outcome. Throughout the war, the Jedi had been stretched thin. Palpatine exploited this by subtly turning public opinion against them. Through carefully crafted propaganda, he painted the Jedi as ineffective at best and traitorous at worst. The longer the war dragged on, the more the galaxy began to question the Jedi's role as peacekeepers. Palpatine didn't just want to eliminate the Jedi physically, he wanted to destroy their legacy. By the time the war was nearing its conclusion, the Jedi had lost much of the moral authority they had once wielded. They were no longer seen as the noble protectors of peace and justice, they were seen as warriors entrenched in a conflict they couldn't win. Palpatine made sure that when the time came, there would be no one left to defend the Jedi's honor. As the Clone Wars reached their final stages, Palpatine orchestrated his most audacious move, his own abduction by General Grievous. To the galaxy, it looked like a desperate Separatist strike, a last-ditch effort to destabilize the Republic. But as always, Palpatine was in full control. The timing was no coincidence. With the Jedi scattered across distant battlefronts, Coruscant was left vulnerable, exactly as Palpatine intended. His abduction wasn't just a military event. It was the final push to solidify his image as the Republic's savior. When Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi rescued him, Palpatine emerged not as a weakened leader, but as a symbol of resilience, reinforcing the idea that he alone could guide the Republic through its darkest hour. What makes this even more significant is how Palpatine manipulated it into a public spectacle. By allowing the Jedi to fail in protecting him, Palpatine exposed their limitations, planting seeds of doubt about their ability to lead. He didn't just undermine the Jedi in the Senate, he let the galaxy see their vulnerability firsthand. As Palpatine returned to the Senate, the senators were desperate for stability, and they unknowingly traded their authority for his promises of order. The abduction had been the final push they needed to surrender completely. They were no longer handing over powers out of necessity, they were doing it out of fear. Palpatine had masterfully maneuvered them into a position where they saw no other option. And so the Senate, which had once stood for the Republic's principles, unknowingly signed away their remaining authority. Palpatine didn't need to seize control by force. He let the Senate destroy itself through desperation. He had carefully engineered a galaxy so dependent on him that any hope of resistance was extinguished. The Jedi were shattered, the Senate powerless, and the Republic's economy bound to his will. The Clone Wars were never about military victories. They were Palpatine's plan to crumble the Republic from within, leaving no one to oppose the rise of the Empire. What the galaxy thought was a fight for freedom had always been his manipulation. The Republic's downfall didn't end with politics. The galaxy's economic and social dependence on Palpatine made the transition to the Empire feel inevitable, and resistance a distant memory. Piece by piece, Palpatine had dismantled the Republic, and when the moment came, the Senate cheered as he declared himself Emperor, sealing the galaxy's fate with thunderous applause. Do you think anyone could have stopped Palpatine, or was the galaxy doomed from the start of the Clone Wars? I look forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, may the dark side be with you.